All right, guys. It's 9:03. We're going to get rolling. Before we get started this evening, I need just a minute of your time for something that I wrote up and shared with the board, and that we're going to send out to everyone in the country. But we thought that we needed to share it this morning before we started. So just bear with me for 1 minute. I ran for the NILOA board to primarily work towards helping all of us become better officials. These director calls are one part of that mission, as is the forum and planning for what I believe will be the most productive summer from an official's education and training standpoint in NILOA's history. Unfortunately, for the past few weeks, we as a board have been exposed to several instances, both at the college level and for myself locally in my home state, of officials who have been accused of saying something or writing something that was at best unprofessional and at worst immoral and potentially criminal. We are all brought to this advocation, this thing of ours, if I can use a New Jersey slang, in large part because of our love of the game, the kids, and our love of the craft of officiating. How can we explain to anyone the miles and miles of driving away from our families, the rain, the mud, the snow, the stress and hard work to be the best we can be, not to mention those countless rubber bits that clog our washing machines? How could we explain that? Would they even understand if we tried? Unfortunately, we are more than ever at a time in our country when everything we say and do is under a microscope for all to see, and society does not hesitate to share anything that they think will grant themselves 10 seconds of attention with no thought to the cost. A great prepared official with years of experience, a great crewmate, a good parent, husband, wife, son, or daughter can lose it all over a comment that took seconds to make or to type. For all of us, this is very upsetting to see. Please, please, please know that in this thing of ours, we are on stage at all times, and we have to be more careful than ever about what we say and write and who we say it to. All of us will be faced with the very personal decision someday to step off the field at whatever level we find ourselves in our officiating journey. Each of us deserves to make that decision for ourselves and not to be ripped off the field because of a momentary lapse in judgment. In the past few weeks, we have seen this happen, and it is not something that we would wish on anyone. Thanks for the time. And now let's get on to why we logged on in the first place. Guys, we have handouts in the lower right-hand corner of the different clips, and you'll be able to download those to your own computers yourself so that you'll be able to watch the clips while TA and Suddy go through the various parts of what is a very, very well-prepared director's call. Go ahead, Tom.
All right. Thanks, everybody. And I apologize for my voice up front. And if I have a coughing spell, I'll try to get over it in a hurry. But been a little under the weather lately. But we'll fight through as we always do. And, you know, PJ read that statement, and we've always told everybody how important professionalism is when we walk on that field and wear the stripes. So don't ever forget it. We are professionals. We need to conduct ourselves as professionals before we arrive at the campus and after we exit. And just remember, we do have a social media policy that we need to adhere to also. So enough said on that. Tonight we're going to hopefully get through some topics that are still not refined well enough for us as a group, and give you some guidance on how to make us all better. So first thing we'll go through is the flight conference playoffs. We're going to talk about over and back. We've had several questions on the forum about over and back, and we actually talked in length this afternoon about how we want a rule one that we're going to talk about tonight. So we're going to talk about restarts. Restarts continue to be a little bit of an issue, and we're going to work through some scenarios on that. Game management, I listed as game management, but Tommy Abbott's going to talk about, when we administer penalties, multiple penalties, confusing situations, how we want to handle that over by the substitution area in the table area. We're going to kind of hopefully put some clarity to the pick penalties, a little bit of difference between what Tommy and I told you 3 weeks ago and possibly what was on a film on Arbiter. So we're going to try to clarify that just a little bit for you. Face off, we're just going to review the mechanic and review the new mechanic that we put out. We've had some questions about adjudication, how do you adjudicate people coming out of the box. I know Tommy and I talked about that in our last director's call, but we'll just touch some highlights of that also. And then finally, we're going to talk about sticks. Not my favorite subject, but they're being awful creative out there these days, and we're just going to give you some tips and pointers and what to do with those situations if they arise. So with no further ado, we'll jump right into it. Travel policy, within, I would say, a week to 10 days, and we have it just now to be filling in the conference playoff assignments. One critical thing is if you are fortunate enough to work one of those, and you are going to have to travel a long distance and possibly take a flight to one of those, it's important that you follow the flight policy as far as timing and when you're expected to leave and why. And also, once you accept that game that Tommy may or may not assign you to, you need to make sure you hit the airplane mode if you're going to fly within, as soon as possible. And I would say within 3 hours of accepting that assignment, you should be looking at flights and hitting that airplane mode. It's awful critical. We're short time frame on these conference playoffs. Tommy Abbott doesn't even know where they are until the last games are played, the 27th and 28th weekend, I believe it is, 28th, 29th, 27, 28, 29. So he'll be making some decisions, and then we're within inside a week for flights. So as soon as we can get them okayed by Kevin and Tommy, when you hit the airplane mode, the better will be and the lower cost for the conferences involved. So that's all I wanted to say about that. We'll talk about over and back.
Tommy, the only thing I want to add to that is conferences are already in my ear about making sure that we get hotel rooms and flights squared away. So I know that the timing is really important. Once you get that assignment, make sure you hit that airplane icon and make sure we get that stuff squared away right away. It's really important for them.
Yep, absolutely. All right, over and back. Like I said, we've had some questions on the forum. I've kind of grabbed the most interesting type of questions. Again, we're going to tell you something on this call tonight that's not 100% official, but we feel it's 99% good to talk about. A final ruling will be coming out on Arbiter on one of these situations, not Arbiter, Legal Web tomorrow, more than likely. Just to clarify, yes, what we talked about is what we need to call it, but we're pretty confident. We're confident enough that it's going to be ruled that way that we're going to talk about it tonight. So, first question, can a defensive player use his foot to kick bat ball to keep the ball from crossing the midline? So what the question really is we're allowed to use our stick, right, to bat the ball from crossing the midfield line. The question was, can a player lift his foot, keep the ball from crossing the midline into the defensive area? The ruling on that is going to be no. A defensive player may not use his foot to kick bat the ball to keep it from the ball from crossing the midline. The player should be considered in the half of the field where his body resides. And as you think about it, we talked about it earlier, a player out of bounds can't be out of bounds and put his foot inside the line and play the ball, right? Same way, a lot of other lines on the field, we try to treat them the same way, and this is similar to that. So the ruling, as of right now, 99% sure that's going to come out this way. And this is the one I was talking about where it'll be out on Zebra Web tomorrow. But right now, the only thing that can touch that ball would be a stick on the other side of midfield, not the player's body. All right. Team A is satisfied, 30-second clearing count, shoots on goal. The shot bounces off the pipe, heads toward midfield line. Team A then bats the ball over the midfield line in an attempt to pick up the ball. Is this over and back, or is this still considered a shot? At what point does the shot end? Last year, there was a video put out on this. I think Tommy narrated it. And it showed the exact scenario that's in this question. You have to get in your mind, it's the same as a shot on the sideline, end line. It's going out, possibly going out of bounds. All right, shot on goal. If the ball comes to rest on the field, it's no longer a shot, right? But if the player added impetus or causes the ball to go out of bounds, that's no longer a shot. And it's the same way that should be dealt with at midfield. In this question, it says Team A bats the ball, but in my opinion, that's pretty easy. If he bats it, that's over and back, right? If he goes to scoop it and pushes it over, it's over and back. If the shot is coming that fast and he tries to scoop it and misses it or tips it, and it was going to go over and back anyways, now you got nothing, right? Because he didn't put it back. The shot still put it back. So we're going to treat it just like an end line, sideline, as far as that scenario goes. Did I explain that good enough, Tommy?
Yeah, you did fine, Tommy. I think the key is we added an NCAA memo back in January of last year. Basically what Tommy just said, it's exactly this situation. The first one we talked about with regards to the body part that keeps the ball from crossing the midline. It's if you think of basketball, it's the same thing. Basketball doesn't have a guy standing on the other side of the field, but if he were there and touched the ball, it would be over and back in hoops. So that's something we still need to clarify with the NCAA. I've got emails into them right now. I want to make sure that it's okay with them before we go ahead and put it on Zebra Web tomorrow. But the idea is, if you're an offensive player and the ball's bouncing towards the midline and actually goes over but has not touched anything yet, if you're an established offensive player, you can reach over and get that ball with your stick and still be in the offensive half of the field, just like you would on a sideline out of bounds to save it. So being consistent, that's really what we're looking at. Tommy and I and Brian talked about it earlier today. It's the consistency of whether or not where you are, where your body is established. And that's the point that we're going to try to make on those.
Yeah, and that leads right into the last question about over and back. Team A is satisfied with the 30-second count, and the over and back rule is activated. Team A throws an errant pass, and the ball bounces toward the midfield line. The question was, can Team A player with his feet on the offensive side of the field, in other words, where the ball should be still, right? Call it zone 3, the offensive side. Reach across the midfield line, just about what Tommy just said. You can reach across the midfield line. Bat the ball back into the offensive zone prior to the ball touching something on the defensive side, zone 2. Or catch the ball in the air prior to the ball touching something in the defensive zone. So the ruling on this is yes to both. He's allowed to do that, essentially treat the midfield line, in the case like a sideline or end line. Trying to be consistent, trying to carry the same philosophy between the lines and where the players are as we defined them, for 20 years that I've been in the sport. I don't think we're making anything new. It's just a ruling that causes an interpretation and some good questions from the forum. So that was all I had on over and back. We'll move on to restarts. Restarts, I think I've put a memo out on restarts every year so far. And now we're going to talk about it tonight. For reference, the memos are out there. 2017 is out there anyways. 2016 is not. The 2017 restart memo is out there. You can use that link to go to it. Again, this presentation will be up on our website, NILOA.net, and you can watch it and you can get the presentation and do any links you want. The other is a video clip that we made last year about restarts. The bottom line is we need to officiate this play and officiate a little bit better than we have been in the past and more recently. It's still occurring. We just need to make sure that we do officiate the play. It's part of, even though it's non-playing time, it's still part of the game. It's just pretty important. We need to eliminate the hidden ball tricks that are being run at our expense. Doesn't make any of us look real good when that type of play happens. And it really is a deceptive play that we really need to try to eliminate as much as possible. I guess you got to question yourself, and it not only goes to the restarts, but do we have a tendency to relax in non-play situations? Do we stop officiating? Is there something we can do to make sure we're still engaged? Do we know how much time's on the clock when a penalty goes in? Or do we just report the penalty and, put the ball back into play? There's a lot of things that we need a referee in non-playing time. Matter of fact, that's probably where the better referees do most of the refereeing, to tell you the truth, is in non-playing time. So think about that. Think about if we're relaxing. Think about what we should be doing to make play better when it comes back in. On these restarts, we're going to watch a couple clips here in a minute, but we need to have a presence during the restarts. We need to be there. If there's multiple players near that restart, we need to be over there. We need to be refereeing that. Just don't leave it alone or start yelling from 30 yards away, or just blow the play back in. That's even worse. But be there, be a presence. To me, we should have two sets of eyes. Kevin O'Leary and I talked about this earlier. I think we should have two sets of eyes on every restart. There's three of us on the field. Two of us ought to be refereeing that restart. The other guy can worry about the rest of the players. So a couple important things here. If any one of the crew, right, any one of the three feel that something is not correct with that restart, stop play. Is it really going to hurt anything if we stop play? Yeah, the coaches might scream, what, we need a quick restart or whatever. Again, going back to restarts, we have to be ready also. And if we don't think something's right, I think it's more critical to stop that play as soon as you can, and as soon as you recognize something's not quite right, or we may have done something to assist that play in the way it's developing. All right, so don't be afraid of it, because if you don't stop it right away, then we got to go to the next bullet, which is if a goal is scored that occurred during due to a rule being broken or officials' mistakes, we need to correct it, and we have every right to correct it by rule. If you read Rule 7-12, I hope people on the phone can tell me how long do we get to correct that situation if a goal was scored. I'm hoping everybody says before the next face-off, the whistle. And that's true. I mean, we got all kinds of time to get together and get the play right. We really need to get the play right. It may not look great. We might have a conference, whatever, but if we get it right, isn't that what we're there for? And that's what we should be striving for. So keep those things in mind when we're refereeing non-playing situations, for sure. So restarts, we want to resume play quickly. Absolutely we do. But now with our pants on fire, you've heard me use that explanation a lot. This is when we get in trouble. When we start to play too quickly. That's when the bad things are going to happen. Players are going to end up getting a penalty. We're going to start to play with the offensive player too close. A lot of other things. We're going to start to play when the if the ball goes out of bounds and we're blowing it right back in, and the defensive coach wanted a timeout because the goalie's out. All those things need to be considered prior to that restart, and it can happen quickly. And we want the restart to happen quickly, but somebody's got to be checking all them other moving parts before that restart. We had a situation over the weekend in the game, late in the shot clock, ball went out of bounds. The player come from the sideline a full sprint. Whistle was blown for play to be back in. Guy made a pass, shot, scored, right about 0 on the shot clock. Not saying it's good or bad. I'm just saying that if that guy didn't have a running start, would have been good. So, again, we have to referee non-playing time situations and know when we can blow it back in and when we can't. It's not our fault if the player takes off on a full running start, and we blow it dead and come back. Yeah, the coach is going to give you some, talking to, but by rule, we can't allow it to happen. And that's a correctable error. You bring it back, you make sure your shot clock's where it was when you stopped, and the game clock the same, and get the game going again the way it should have been going. Again, we talked a little bit about it, getting rid of the hidden ball trick. We can help our situation by making sure there's no offensive player within 5 yards. We got a couple of clips we're going to look at. We're going to try to talk through them. We'll watch them a couple of times, then we'll come back and talk through them and try to give you some pointers on what we can do a little bit better during these situations. So, yeah, as we run through the clips, you'll notice in one of them, there's no referees present at all. And the other one, the referee may be distracted. But we're going to go ahead and run that one clip. Couple times. We use 5 seconds before we can do anything. So yes, and I'm also going to visualize, and that's why we're saying be over there at that restart. Don't not referee that restart. And you're going to do some preventive officiating where you're there. You're going to say, hey, move away as I'm swinging my arm with the 5-second count, right? If they don't adhere to it, it's easy. You're going to turn it over and give it to the other team. They'll get the idea.
Tommy, the last point that I'd like to make on this is, fellas, we get in trouble because we start to play too quick because players want to go. They want to go, go, go. Well, the bottom line is they can go, 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 but they can't do it till we blow the whistle. Just because they want to do it doesn't mean that we have to. Make sure the situation's right and then do it on your terms, not theirs.
Exactly. All right. Tommy's going to kind of review a situation that's on film that was reviewed, and what we can do better there to referee that situation and make it look, the perception look a little bit better for the officials. So Tommy, you want to go ahead?
Yep. Guys, what I'm talking about is game management deal with the substitution box in the table area. I've talked about this in the past on a number of occasions. I think it boils down to a little bit of bench decorum and being able to manage that table and substitution box. And, God knows I watch parts of games, dozens of games every Saturday and often during the week as well. And I see a lot of stuff on the iPad and computer. So I listen to announcers, some of who are very good and very lacrosse educated. But when you're looking at events that are being streamed at different locations, some of those folks that are doing the announcing are not lacrosse educated. So the point of this whole thing is that substitution box and that table area in particular, when you're relaying a foul or a series of fouls or multiple fouls, or you have a situation in a game where you've got live ball, dead ball, or you've got multiple fouls on the field, you're not sure if it's a 1 minute or a 2 minute foul, if you're going to lock them in. All of those situations, we generally and should get together prior to going to the table area to relay the foul to the table. By the time we get to the table area, the decision on who's going to sit, who's going to be penalized, and who's going to get the ball has already been made. Those decisions are done. But when you watch on TV or on iPad or computer, there are several instances that I've seen over the last few weeks, and it's going to be even more intense in the next month with conferences getting into serious play right now, that we get to the table area to relay that foul, and there are coaches in that space, and they start to debate with the official who's going to do the relay, and the signal doesn't get made until after a lot of discussion takes place. It is imperative that space is yours. It belongs to officials, and it belongs to players during live ball play that are substituting. Coaches are not supposed to be there. You don't see it in other sports. In basketball, when they go to the table to look at the monitor, there's no coach there. There should be no coach there in lacrosse. Get them back where they belong. Make your call to the table. Make it clear and succinct. Make sure you're talking to coaches ahead of time. Fellas, get back to your table area and pay attention to what I say. I have multiple fouls. Please listen. And then go ahead and give your call. I watched one the other day that took about 45 seconds, and even the announcers on TV made the comment, we don't even know what the fouls are because they haven't been relayed to the table yet. And it looked as if the coach was debating whether or not he was going to get the ball. I believe it was a live ball, dead ball. He didn't understand the fact as to why he didn't get the ball. Make your call, get them out of there, and if they want to discuss it after you're done, you can briefly do that with them so that they know who has the ball and where. I think it's really important that we maintain that space for us. If we do it early in the game and make sure that they're out of that space, you may not have problems when you get to relay fouls. It's a big part of owning that sideline that I've been talking about for a while. And I think we need to do a much better job coming down the stretch. It doesn't mean you have to be a jerk about it. It means you have to be professional, get them back where they belong, and do what you have to do to maintain that space that's yours. It's not theirs.
Okay. And I'm going to throw it back to Tommy again in a second, but we're going to try to talk a little bit about the picks again briefly. We talked at great length last week. We're just trying to make some clarity of when we want to call something other than unnecessary or unsports, other than a moving pick, such as unnecessary or unfortunately. So there may have been a little bit of confusion between the arbiter video and what we said on director's call, and Tommy's going to try to tell you what we're trying to discuss and try to tell you how to interpret what that player is doing running through that pick. So go ahead, Tommy.
Yeah, at our last director's call, we talked about it. I think it's important because pick plays are really a big deal now. Everybody's picking for the guy with the ball. There's a lot of flops occurring. There's people getting hit, people going down before they get hit, all kinds of stuff. And what's legal and not legal is becoming more and more difficult to discern. The kicker here is teams know exactly what other teams do. And I said this before because they watch film. So if you're watching film for 4 days on your next opponent, you know how they run their offense and how a defensive team expects to play defense against them. If a pick is set and a defensive player comes through that pick in an aggressive manner and basically takes the guy out, he does not have to look at him first to have it be a foul. If he's aggressively running through there and you think he did it on purpose, it's a foul. That was not necessarily the case that was set out on the arbiter clip that went out a while ago. Coach Zimmerman sent out a few of them, but I wanted to make sure that we know and the coaches know that if a player takes an aggressive run at a picker, that we're going to call it. If we call it, they're not going to do it. They'll figure out another way to get around that guy.
All righty. On to one of our last two topics of the evening. We're going to discuss the face-off mechanic, just run through our expectations of the face-off mechanic. We've noticed that there are different mechanics being used to start the face-off. We just want to get everybody under the same umbrella in fairness to players, coaches, and our fellow officials. Since we work with different people, we need to be cognizant of the mechanics we use and what is expected to be used. So we'll just run through that. Some of the mechanics we're seeing, the players are down for 20 seconds, approximately 20 seconds or more, which is way too long. So our mechanic, the way it's written and the way we've discussed it for the last 2 to 3 years at the clinics, and it's in every clinic presentation, we shouldn't be having a player down that long after we tell them to go down. So we're going to try to run through it, try to head that off. We've heard comments from people I just mentioned, coach, player, and fellow officials. That's why we're discussing it. Some of the face-off guys will come and tell us how we're doing these face-offs. We're going to be down a long time or whatever. So they are noticing somewhat of a difference, and our fellow officials are definitely noticing a difference. The assistant coaches will ask that question during the pregame when we go over to face-off. I've heard it a few times, so we just need to address it and try to. The current approved mechanic, as I said, we need to follow it. There's a memo that put out 2/22 of 18 is memo 2 face-off talk. It's on NILOA.net. If you need to refer to it, it was also sent to everybody explaining the face-off mechanics and our expectations thereof. We haven't changed anything in our mechanics from what we presented way back in 2016. And there's a start of the season memo dated 3/20/15. So what the expectations of the face-off mechanic haven't changed, and which is important to realize. Rule 4-3B, which I don't agree with the mechanic being a rule, but it's in the rule book, got put in the rule book, also explains it. There's 2 people that conduct the face-off, but the helper is mentioned not until step 5 of that section. So, we ask if you're using alter mechanics, such as moving away after telling players to go down, please readjust and follow the expected mechanic that all officials should be following. So running real quick, the 2 responsibilities. Again, we said 2 people are conducting the face-off. The single side is in charge of conducting all the face-offs. That's pretty obvious. He'll do all this. He'll do the speaking about going down, and he'll blow the whistle. When he puts the ball down, before he tells the players to go down, he'll have the ball in his hand. He'll say down to the players, adjust the players after they initially go down into their positions. So you're right there next to the players when you tell them to go down. You move them around. What you need to move. The helper's also simultaneous doing the same thing verbally. The single side guy should be the only one touching the sticks or the players as far as that adjustment. Single side does verbally instruct. He can look at the neutral zone. He can look at the sticks lined up. He can definitely look at the stick that's facing him, player's hand, the backhand, the foot. That's a quick check. The other guy's looking at the other player that's facing him. If you're looking at the stick, you're adjusting, making sure that player is in good position. When you put the ball in, you're going to keep your hand on it. No whistle. You're going to back up a couple steps, blow the whistle. We've done a lot better job getting that ball in the middle of the sticks, 5 inches. The stick's 10 inches long. Most of them are. Put the ball at the 5-inch mark, and the face-offs go a lot better. You're going to make sure you stay set with the hand on the sticks, and then move away and blow the whistle. All right. By rule, we're supposed to be delaying and varying your whistles on every face-off, and I think there's enough variety in the three people officiating a game that accomplishes that. So what do you do as a helper? I already said simultaneously after the official tells them to go down, you're going to check the neutral zone. You're going to check the head alignments. You're going to verbalize only. Don't touch them. One person touching the sticks is enough. The guy conducting the face-off is right there. He's getting the job done same time you are. Once you're set, I usually say to my partner, all set, and I back out to where I can hear the set call. I can watch for movement, but I'm also safe from the wing players. You got to know where the wing players are. We've seen a lot of video that the helper is a long ways away, and we don't want to eliminate that helper from the face-off. So you need to be there. You need to be able to hear set. You need to assist that guy in any movement, and then make sure you're out of the way of the wing guys. Don't leave the area. Don't vacate it. Still got to referee it. Just a review of the new mechanic, and we're going to review with adjudication again, since we did have some questions. Personally, I think the new mechanic is working well with the single side, putting all the ball back, always putting the ball back in play after a face-off violation. And one thing I think we can do a little bit better, I've seen some good progress, is if you know there's a face-off violation and you were the helper, make sure you turn right away to that defensive clearing line and making sure the players are stayed. The other guy should be on the defensive clearing line already and refereeing that. But if you know there's going to be a violation and you don't have to call it, your first instinct needs to be turned to the defensive clearing line. If you got to call the violation, make your signal, then turn to the defensive clearing line. All right? But I think the mechanic is working and working well. We just need to continue with it and start and continue with improvement with the quickness of that we're turning the referee that defensive clearing line. Adjudication, I think we talked about it last director call. I think Tommy's told everybody, if you think it's deliberate and deceptive, that's going to be a 30-second penalty. If we just thought that, they made a mistake and come out, there's one in each team, you're going to put them back in. If we thought one guy come out just by accident, put them back in. But if you think it's a deceptive move, or if they continually do it every time there's a face-off violation, then we got to penalize that situation. All right. But if we're preventative and making sure we're refereeing the defensive clearing line after a violation, we should cut down. But if that guy takes off for substitutionary on a dead bolt, and he's the only guy that went, and the other guy's ready to come in the game, I think you got to look at that. Another question was asked about wing substitution on a violation. And as long as they're subbing on that wing after a violation called, we think it's appropriate. The wing players are released. They should be able to substitute. So if a team wants to substitute and get a long pole, say if they violated, or get a short pole if they're going offense, they have a right to substitute as long as they're, normal substitution or off the field before the other guy comes on after a face-off violation. Anything to add to all that, Tommy?
Yeah, just a couple things. Obviously, it's the same mechanic we've had forever, and the improvements that we've made over the last few years have been great. I mean, the face-offs have been way better. They're looking at wing play that's been tremendous for teams these days, which is what leads to 4 poles being on wings now, as opposed to short sticks that used to be there. So if there is a face-off violation, what Tommy just said, those 6 players who are in the middle of the field are released, and they can actually substitute. So the long pole can come off and a shorty can come on. Chances are he'll never be able to get out to where the ball is, but they can substitute in that case. And again, the things that we're talking about right now are based on some comments that we've heard from coaches and from fellow officials and folks involved in the game. I think really the biggest thing that we're dealing with right now is a little bit too much time getting the players set before we actually blow the whistle. So do your best to get them down there. Don't take a whole lot of time. Get them in the proper position and get that thing going as soon as you can. Make sure you vary whistle. But like I said, it's been a great improvement over the previous years, and everybody's doing a really good job at it. We just need you to keep working at it, because every time we make an improvement in the face-off, they try to figure out some way to make it difficult for us to officiate. So just keep doing what you're doing, and work at it on every face-off that you have.
Okay. Now to our last topic. Hopefully it'll be quick. It has to do with stick heads, probably more than you want to know, but we need to put it out there. Some of the things we've seen, some of the things have been discussed. Players are still altering crosses from the manufacturer to gain an advantage. Anything they do to alter that stick to gain an advantage should be an illegal stick, considered an illegal stick. All right, they're messing around with the sidewalls. We've heard a couple of reports where they're putting slices in the sidewall, particularly the face-off guys, by sawing them, trying to create either more flexibility or possibly a jagged edge that would catch the netting of an opponent on a face-off. I don't check many face-off kids' stick, but and it would be very difficult to catch even on a normal stick check. But if you're seeing somebody's stick getting pulled away as that guy's raking, there may be something to look at. So keep in mind, anything they do to alter that stick that's made by the manufacturer should be considered an illegal stick. I think we all know what a normal stick looks like coming from manufacturer. Which brings us to the next thing, stringing. From an NCAA memo that came out, and the new shooting string 4-inch rule to try to keep the channel out of the stick head. We've done a good job with the shooting strings and the 4-inch. That's pretty easy, right? During the stick checks. But if they, any stringing method that creates that type of channel should be considered a violation of the current rule. The committee sees it as it's a blatant attempt to circumvent the rules. It's written here. So if they're trying to get that ball to channel and come out the middle of the stick, it's probably going to be not appropriate. So there's a couple things that I'm going to talk about and show you a picture of here in a minute. But just to hang your hat on a rule, if if you run into that situation, note 1, I think it's on page 15, but it's in Rule 1-18. Any cross which the net is woven to the head in such a manner that a lip or hook is formed that might ensnare the ball is illegal. And when I show you this picture, you're probably going to say, oh shit, I've either seen that and didn't do anything with it, or I haven't seen it yet. I will tell you, I've seen 2 of them already this season, and one as late as Saturday. So we're either allowing it in the game, and it shouldn't be allowed in the game, or we're just not catching it or picking up on it. The other rule we can hang our hat on, and Tommy and I have talked about this in length, the weaving, which means the net must be attached firmly and completely to those sidewalls. And Tommy's interpretation and the NCAA's interpretation, sidewalls is all the way around that stick. So as we view the next picture, I just want to leave it up to you guys. What would you do with that? In our opinion, the NCAA's opinion, that's an illegal stick. That can't be allowed. It's not firmly attached. It can create a hook or a snare for the ball where the plastic is exposed. It also channels the ball. There's a number of things that we can hang our hat on that. And like I said, I've seen 2 of them this year. I've made them fix both of them. One was in pregame. The other one I just happened to notice. But if we don't take care of it, shame on us. So to me, pretty straightforward. To Tommy Abbott's pretty straightforward. That stick has got to be considered illegal. Tommy, anything else to add on that?
No, it's all on page 15, guys.
Yep. Read through it. You can hang your hat on those 3 things we talked about, but that's not firmly attached anywhere to all the sidewalls, in my opinion, and a lot of others' opinions. So be aware of it. Know what you're going to call. Hopefully you can be proactive in pregame. You know, take a look as you're walking around. Every stick check you do, if you see it, get it out of there before the game starts. Might alleviate some issues during the game for you.
Hey guys, we have a couple of questions here on that particular stick that we're looking at. And the question is, do you consider that to be a pocket violation, or do you consider that to be the full 3 minutes?
That's a full 3-minute non-releasable foul.
Agreed.
The only thing you can do with a pocket is a deep pocket.
Thank you very much.
Yep. And believe me, and that's a great question, and what I said is accurate. The only way you can have a 1-minute foul or a pocket is if it's deep. If you turn it over and that stringing is hanging that in there and it's not coming out, that's not a pocket issue. That's an illegal stick. All right. A lot of people confuse that. The only pocket that we have is a sagging pocket for a 1-minute foul. Everything else on the stick is a 3-minute foul, if you're going to call something.
Try to find these before the game starts, guys.
Yes. Be proactive. And, you know, the guys don't know it. I mean, if you go on the internet, this is, it didn't take me very long to find this picture on the internet. I should have took a picture during the game, but I didn't have my phone. But it doesn't take you very long to find this stuff on the internet, for sure. And the quicker we can get it out of the game, the better it's going to be all in the long run. You know, we've been on longer than what I'd like to be on. I appreciate it. It's been an hour tonight. I apologize for going so long. I like to keep it 45, 50 minutes at most. But I think there are some topics that we really need to cover, and we did get through them. And I hope we answered some questions. We didn't create any confusion. We try not to. Sometimes we do, and we apologize for that. Everybody have a good night, and we'll talk to you again in 3 weeks, possibly.
3 weeks. Guys, good luck with the good luck with the crazy weather on the East Coast this weekend. I know a lot of people are getting moved around. Drive safely.